On this video, I'm going to be overhauling my entire brewing process. Hi, I'm Daryl Smith. I'm a home brewer in the UK, and on my videos, what I normally share with you is a grain to glass video where I go through my whole brew day and then we drink the hopefully delicious beer. So following on from my last video where I got something catastrophically wrong, I wanted to completely review how I brew and to try and see if there are any easy ways that I can improve my beer without having to buy any additional equipment and just improve my skills. So I've done a heap of extra reading and video watching to try and work out places in my brew day where I could make things better. An element which I really wanted to address after looking at multiple sources was how I'm mashing. See, I normally mash at 67 degrees. This ends up with a slightly sweeter beer, which is a bit lower in ABV, but most brewers tend to mash lower than what I do at say 65 or 66 degrees Celsius. So I'm keen to try out mashing at a lower temperature. And also I've spotted that I've been doing my pH wrong. I've basically been wasting lactic acid by adding it to the wort whilst I'm boiling it. Really, you should be altering your pH in the mash so to improve mash efficiency. So that's what I'm really wanting to address here. I'm also quite interested by the process of mashing out. I've never done it before, but it was recommended by some people that maybe I should. In this beer, I tried it out for the first time to see if that would help improve results. So the recipe that I'm actually following in this video is a SMaSH beer, which is a single malt, a single hop, and a single type of yeast. The idea behind this is that you just keep everything simple and really just concentrate on the process. And also it's a great way to learn the characteristics of hops and malts and yeasts. My last video I brewed with 7 hops and it resulted in a very grapefruity beer with hard to identify tastes. The interplay was a bit mad, whereas I'm hoping by just doing single hop that I can really just enjoy and celebrate the hop that I'm choosing. I'm going to use Pilsen malt and the only hops are going to be Simcoe, and I'm going to use Lutra Kvike yeast for the first time ever. I'm really excited to use it. Its defining characteristic is that it's very neutral and it tends to result in a very clear beer. People even use it to make pseudo lagers because it makes your beer so clear compared to Voss, which can have a bit of a cloudy characteristic to it. So I'm hoping this ends up being the clearest beer that I've ever made, as well as one with very little yeast characteristics. So now you know all that, let's get to brewing it.
First things first, I put my water into the kettle and then added half a Camden tablet. I left this for 30 minutes so to extract the chlorine from the water. Using Beersmith Free's water profile tool, I chose my favourite profile, which is the Hoppy water profile, and adjusted my tap water with Epsom and gypsum. I then started heating up the water to my target temperature of 71 degrees. Whilst I was waiting for the water to heat up, I grabbed my grains, which was simply one 5 kilogram bag of Pilsner malt. More specifically, I used Crisp's Europils. Whilst the water was heating up, I also prepared my hop additions, all of which were Simcoe. I prepared 4 15-gram hits of the Simcoe. They were added at 30, 20, 15 and 10 minutes before the end of the boil. My final hop addition was 50 grams for the flameout. My last little bit of prep was to measure out yeast nutrient and Irish moss following the manufacturer's instructions, though I added a little extra yeast nutrient because I'm using Kvike yeast. The full recipe is in the description, and if you're enjoying this video then please do hit the like and subscribe buttons and let me know what was your biggest home brewing game changer. For me, it's probably discovering Kvike yeast. Once the water was up to temp, I added my grain bag and grains, stirring regularly to stop clumping. The grains reduced the water's temperature to my target mash temperature of around 65 degrees C. 10 minutes into the mash, I gave the grains a stir and took a sample so to test the mash's pH. I used an Apera Instruments pH meter, a link to which is in the description. I somehow lost the footage of me testing, but I did discover my pH was way higher than I expected. A healthy mash pH is between 5.2 and 5.5, whereas mine was closer to 6. So I added 2 millimeters of lactic acid to lower the pH. 15 minutes later, I gave the grains a good stir and checked the temperature, and also took another look at the pH. I got it slightly lower than planned at 5.1, which is still much closer to what I wanted compared to before. Once the overall mash time had got to an hour, I then began the process of mashing out the grains. In this process, you heat up the mash to 77 degrees C for 10 minutes so to denature the enzymes and stop them converting sugars. I then drained the grain bag, squeezed it, and left it to drip for 15 minutes whilst the wort got boiling. I decided here not to pour boiling water over the bag as I didn't want to accidentally change the water profile. Once the wort was rolling, it was time to start the 60-minute boil. On beers like this, I often go for a 30-minute boil, but after reading up on Pilsner malt, it's often suggested that you should actually do a 60-minute boil so to drive off DMS. 30 minutes in, I began to follow my hopping routine. At 15 minutes, I added my copper cooling coil so to sanitize it. 10 minutes before the end, I added Irish moss to make the final beer clearer and the yeast nutrients so to ensure a healthy fermentation. At flameout, I added my final hops and dropped the temperature to 80 degrees and then started a 15-minute hop stand. When the time was up, I got the wort to 40 degrees Celsius and added it to my fermenter, allowing some splashing to get oxygen in it. Finally, it was time to sprinkle my Lutra yeast in, give it a shake, and then put the fermenter onto a heat pad for a week before bottling.
I think what surprised me most about that brew day was how little extra time the other processes that I added to it took. You know, a mash always takes an hour, so why not spend some of that mash testing the pH? I was surprised by how high the pH actually was. So I'm really pleased that I did lower it, and I'm hoping that the resulting beer tastes really good because of the pH alterations. I'm not 100% convinced that the mash out is necessary. There are so many mixed reviews on if it's at all necessary. I understand that you're obviously ending the enzymes converting sugars, but then maybe leaving them to convert sugars for a little bit longer whilst you're heating up the wort and whilst you're draining the grain bag. Maybe that's a good idea. Don't know. I can't see there being any other benefits from doing such a thing. Though I do understand that probably like professional brewers, or if you're brewing something over and over again, that it does help give you a bit more consistency. But, you know, I'm always brewing something completely different, so I don't really care about consistency. That was also my fastest ever grain to glass. I was outstanded by the power of Lutra. And within 6 days, I could easily see that the beer was ready to be bottled. And within 6 more days, I was able to test one. So I'll now share with you the beer and we'll have a look at it together. I can really see that it's very clear through the bottle, especially compared to some of my more murky beers recently. That looks very attractive in the bottle. Let's get it open. I think we're about 3 weeks after I bottled it now. Look at that. Do I say that every time? Well, look at it. Thank you for looking at it. Subscribe. That's very clear. That's beautiful. Could probably be clearer. You know, maybe a couple more weeks from now, it would have cleared out even more, but that's very clear. Very straw-like. Very clear. Yeah, and a lovely golden hue to it. Yeah, that looks really attractive. It smells like professional beer. What I mean is, you know, there is that homebrew smell to some beers. Certainly my Kvike Voss beers, they smell like homebrew. I mean, they're delicious, but there's a smell that you don't smell in a brewery to those beers. Probably because most breweries don't use Kvike Voss. But that does smell like beer, like professional beer, like beer you'd buy. Maybe that's because of the Simcoe. That could be the smell of Simcoe, actually. You know, so many modern beers use Simcoe because it's delicious. So the smell of Simcoe should be quite piney, but also very fruity. There should be like apricot and passion fruit smells to it. So if I have a sniff now, let's see if I can identify any of that. Very fruity. It just smells like a brewery, you know? That lovely smell when you walk into a brewery. Yeah, there is that apricot, like almost like dried apricot smell to it. You know, when you open a packet of dried apricot, that's what that smells like. That smells lovely. Almost like apricot sweets. Okay, so here's the moment that we taste it. I have been building up to this for a while. I tasted one a few days after bottling, but that was mostly just to see if it was carbonating okay. So this is really what all of my reviewing of my process and my failure last time round, this is what it's all built up to. So if this is a bad beer, then end of the channel. Right, here we go. That's very lagery. I can understand why Lutra is used for lager. Wow. I don't think I was expecting it to taste so much like a lager. I understand that I've used Pilsner malt, I've used a Kveik yeast that is used in pseudo lagers, but then there's a fair amount of Simcoe in this, so I was expecting it to be more of like a pale feeling beer, you know, but this really feels like a hoppy lager. Gosh. Kind of like what I was saying about the smell, there is a professional taste to this. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant of me, but it really doesn't taste like homebrew. It does taste like a real beer. It looks like one, it smells like one, and I really do think that all my changes have resulted in this being a quality product. I keep looking at how lovely and clear that is, and that is gorgeous. Really, really attractive, really drinkable. You know, that lagery taste, you know, very neutral there is no yeast character to it. There's no yeast smell either. There's like a citrus, zesty taste coming from the Simcoe hops. It's not overly complicated, which makes it really drinkable. It's crushable, as you Americans say. Gosh, I could sink a few of them. Very zesty, very like lemon zest flavour to it. I'm not getting taste of apricot at all. It's just the smell. The power of Lutra is really impressive. It makes me think that I could possibly make a lager using my tap water. I've been worried about attempting that for a while, but this is quite close to feeling like a lager. And I've obviously not used any of the noble hops, which you generally use in a lager, but using Lutra and those hops and my tap water feels like it is possible to make a lager. So I think that's going to be a future video where I might compare it to doing the same using bottled water maybe. You know, that's going on my long list of promised videos. That may or may not happen. My only regret with this beer is that I didn't dry hop it. I almost did. I originally planned on doing so, but then I really wanted this beer to be clear, and I thought anything like that could affect its clarity. And after my previous failure, I just really wanted to make something that was simple and that was clear. Which this is. It's about 5%, should have told you earlier, but yeah, it's about 5%. So I can have a few of these without feeling too merry, which I'm probably going to do now. If it wasn't for that, it's morning whilst I'm filming this. Overall, the best beer that I've ever made, which was the aim. I don't know if it's my favourite beer that I've ever made in like being interesting and super flavoursome, but it tastes like real beer how it should. And that's the important thing in this video, is just for me to try and make quality beer. That sets me up for my next brews. You know, I can go more complicated. I can have a weirder malt bill, use like more unusual hops, in the knowledge that my process is good and that clearly controlling my pH during the mash is absolutely vital to make these beers good, because this is outstanding compared to all my other beers. this is the best one. So yeah, game changer really. So yeah, I can't wait to share with you my next video where I make another beer using my improved process. I'm immediately a big fan of Lutra, and I think there's a lot of fun that can be had with that yeast. So yeah, I think all in all, an absolutely brilliant success. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, what was the biggest game changer for your home brewing? What did you learn that transformed everything? I think the correct pH in my mash is clearly improving my beer, and also discovering Kvike yeast really helped me when I still don't have easy temperature control. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.